This video will walk through a systematic process for pre-procedural imaging of the lumbar spine to guide neuraxial procedures, including spinal anesthesia, epidural analgesia, and lumbar puncture. Assemble the necessary equipment. This includes a curvilinear ultrasound probe, ultrasound gel, skin marking pen, and something to wipe the skin clean and dry before marking. Place the patient in a sitting or lateral decubitus position, whichever is appropriate and feasible, and position the ultrasound machine accordingly for good ergonomics. The sitting position is ideal in patients with a lot of loose overlying soft tissue. Start scanning with sufficient gel to obtain good probe skin contact, but not so much that slipperiness makes probe handling and control difficult. Effective scanning of the lumbar spine, especially in patients with challenging anatomy, requires the ability to make small, subtle, and controlled probe movements. How you hold the probe is thus critical. Keep the probe hand in contact with and braced on the patient at all times, not floating in mid-air. Avoid positions that hyperextend the wrist or generally feel uncomfortable, as this will lead to fatigue and loss of probe control over time. Use a firm yet relaxed grip on the probe, keep your elbows tucked into your side, and apply probe pressure using your body weight rather than the small muscles of the wrist or hand. A two-handed grip will provide finer control of probe manipulation, which is useful when trying to optimize views of the spinal canal in more challenging patients. Place the ultrasound probe in a longitudinal parasagittal orientation on the patient's back, about 3 to 4 centimeters lateral to their midline. Slide the probe in a lateral to medial direction to obtain a view of the flat, finger-like acoustic shadows of the transverse processes, framed by the erector spinae and psoas major muscles. Continue to slide the probe medially, maintaining the parasagittal orientation, and observe the transverse process shadows transitioning into the more superficial, rounded acoustic shadows of the articular processes. From the articular process view, tilt the probe towards the midline to obtain the parasagittal oblique view of laminae and the vertebral canal. This is characterized by sawtooth-shaped acoustic shadows of the lumbar laminae. The most important landmark to identify is the anterior complex. The anterior complex is a hyperechoic linear structure that lies about 2 centimeters deep in adults to that interlaminar gap between adjacent bony laminae. Visualizing the anterior complex confirms that the ultrasound beam is passing through a soft tissue window into the vertebral canal. This represents a pathway for needle insertion to reach the epidural or intrathecal space. The posterior complex is a linear structure within the interlaminar space at the level of the base of the laminar sawtooth shadows. The intrathecal space is the dark anechoic area between posterior and anterior complexes that contains CSF. Keeping a parasagittal oblique view of the lumbar laminae, slide the probe in a caudal direction to identify the L5-S1 space. The sacrum has a much more horizontal and elongated appearance compared to the sawtooth appearance of the L5 lamina. The L5 lamina is narrower than the others, and the sawtooth shadow often looks more compact and pointed as a result. The L5-S1 space is the starting landmark for identifying intervertebral levels, which is done by scanning cranially and counting each interlaminar gap in an upwards direction. More experienced practitioners can start scanning by identifying the sacrum in L5-S1 directly, bypassing the transverse and articular process views. To do this, place the probe on the lateral aspect of the sacrum, using the sacral cleft as a surface landmark. Tilt the probe towards the midline and slide cranially until the L5-S1 interlaminar space comes into view. The L5-S1 interspace is also a clinically useful space to identify, as it's often well preserved even when degenerative disease has narrowed the other interspaces. Spinal anesthesia at the L5-S1 level must be performed with hypobaric local anesthetic solutions to ensure cranial distribution within CSF and adequate block height. One pitfall to be aware of when identifying the L5-S1 space is that there are bony gaps in the sacrum, the sacral foramina. The gap of the S1 foramen can mimic a narrow L5-S1 interspace if the ultrasound beam is directed too medially. To check and verify this, slide and tilt the beam more laterally. The S1 foramen gap will dissolve into an unbroken hyperechoic line of the sacrum. Visualizing the L5-S1 anterior complex at the expected 2 cm depth below the lamina is another confirmatory sign that this is indeed the L5-S1 space. Starting with L5-S1, center the interlaminar space and anterior complex on the screen, and then make a corresponding transverse mark centered on the long edge of the probe. Accurate skin marking is critical, so adjust your line of sight to avoid parallax error. Ensure skin marks are made on dry skin free of any gel. Wipe the skin clean if needed before marking. Slide the probe in a cranial direction to identify, center, and mark each interlaminar space in turn, from L5-S1 all the way up to L2-3. Use a combination of small, subtle, tilting and sliding motions of the probe to optimize the parasagittal oblique view. An optimal view is defined as one that gives us the clearest view of the anterior complex. The view of the anterior complex and width of the interlaminar gap are useful predictors of the likely ease of access to the vertebral canal. A centerline marker is useful to ensure the interspace is centered on the ultrasound screen before marking. This is available by activating M mode in all machines and as a separate function on some machines. Once the intervertebral levels have been identified and marked, rotate the probe 90 degrees counterclockwise into a transverse orientation so that the left side of the screen corresponds to the left side of the patient. Place the probe in the midline, starting at a level above the L2-3 skin marking. Always start the transverse scan cranial to L2-3 and then slide caudally to image the lower lumbar interspaces. The simple reason for this is that it prevents smearing of the midline skin markings that we're going to be marking at each level, as we'll shortly see. At this location, cranial to the L2-3 mark, the ultrasound beam will be intersecting the L2 spinous process. The spinous process view is characterized by a tall, dense acoustic shadow cast by the tip of the spinous process. On each side of this shadow, there are hyperechoic reflections from the lamina that cast their own acoustic shadow. This produces a pattern resembling a church steeple. From the spinous process view, slide the probe in a caudal direction. The ultrasound beam will now intersect the interspinous space. This interspinous view is characterized by the linear hyperechoic anterior complex appearing from within the dense acoustic shadow that was previously cast by the spinous process and lamina. The spinous process gives way to the interspinous ligament, which appears as a dark stripe bordered by the lighter paraspinal muscles on either side. The deeper bony contours also change. Now, instead of the flat roof of lamina in that church steeple view, we see the horned or ear-like appearance of the articular processes, and more laterally, the transverse processes. Learning to recognize the articular processes and transverse processes is useful because they lie in approximately the same transverse plane as the interspinous and interlaminar space. They are thus useful surrogate landmarks in more challenging patients where the anterior complex may be difficult to visualize clearly. Nevertheless, as in the parasagittal oblique view, the anterior complex is the key sonographic landmark that we are looking for, as it signifies that we've identified a soft tissue window into the vertebral canal, one that our needle will be able to pass through. The articular processes and transverse processes are also helpful as landmarks for identifying the anterior complex and posterior complex on ultrasound. The anterior complex, as you can see, is located just below the level of the transverse process, whereas the posterior complex is a hyperechoic linear structure that is in line with the base of the articular processes. The posterior complex, however, is a less important sonographic landmark in the transverse midline view because it's often poorly visible or not visible at all. The clarity of the posterior complex and even the anterior complex will vary from level to level and between individual patients because it's dependent on the width of the interspinous space and how much the bony spinous processes are blocking the ultrasound beam. In this last example in the lower left corner, note the dark stripe through the anterior complex and posterior complex that divides them into two. This represents interference and an acoustic shadow from the tip of a spinous process that is partially blocking the ultrasound beam. These plain X-rays illustrate the narrow interspinous window that the ultrasound beam needs to traverse to enter the vertebral canal in the transverse midline view. In the parasagittal oblique view, on the other hand, we are imaging the vertebral canal through the much larger paramedian interlaminar window, and thus the quality and clarity of the anterior and posterior complex in any individual patient will often be better than in the transverse midline view. This is also why a paraspinous needle approach is often more successful than the midline approach in patients who have challenging anatomy. It's helpful to make small, controlled tilting and sliding motions of the probe to optimize the interspinous view. An optimal view is one that provides the clearest image of the anterior complex, indicating that the ultrasound beam is passing cleanly through a soft tissue window between spinous processes. Trying to image the posterior complex clearly is less relevant and, as mentioned, sometimes not possible. Once an optimal view of the anterior complex has been obtained, center the interspinous ligament and the midline of the vertebral canal on the screen. Activate the on-screen centerline marker for accuracy and precision. Hold the probe steady, wipe the skin clean of gel, and mark the location of the neuraxial midline and the transverse plane of the interlaminar space as shown. The interlaminar space corresponds to the midpoint of the short edge of the probe. Continue to slide the probe slowly and carefully in a caudal direction to image each lumbar intervertebral space in turn. At each space, use small, subtle sliding and tilting probe motions to optimize for the clearest possible view of the anterior complex. With the probe held steady, mark the midline and the transverse plane of the interlaminar space. Strive for accuracy and precision, adjusting your line of sight as needed to avoid parallax error. Always ensure that the marks are being made on clean, dry skin so that they don't rub off later when applying surgical skin preparation. Scan all the intervertebral spaces down to L5-S1 to assess the ease of needle access at each level. This will inform selection of the best interspace for the initial needle insertion. The transverse marks made in the earlier parasagittal oblique view serve to confirm the identity of the interlaminar space that's being imaged and marked in the transverse midline view. Clean the skin thoroughly to remove all gel. Extend the skin marks made in the transverse midline interspinous views to make crosshair markings that will guide needle insertion. Note that the transverse marks made in the parasagittal oblique and transverse midline views do not always line up. If a good view of the anterior complex was obtained in the transverse midline view and you're confident of the precision of your skin marking, then use the transverse midline marks as your primary reference. The marks made in the parasagittal oblique view are a useful fallback, however, in patients who have more challenging anatomy and ultrasound imaging. If the skin marks were made on clean, dry skin, they will not wipe off with skin prep, even if alcohol-containing solutions are used. Perform the Neuraxial procedure in the usual fashion. Initial needle insertion is guided by the ultrasound imaging and skin marking, but needle advancement in any redirection should always be guided and corrected by tactile cues and feedback from the needle tip, together with a constantly updating mental model of the underlying spinal anatomy.